Hi, I'm Dr. Jack, and I have been drawn into social media, kicking and screaming by my son. But I've been told for so many years that I needed to begin to communicate my program and how it influences people's lives, and this podcast is an attempt to do that. If you will stay with me over the course of these projects, I think our lives will get better as we move along. I know mine can. It's interesting to me that some of the things that I've been doing in sports psychology over the last 50 years are very applicable to family life and corporate life as much as the sport environment. I was the very first sports psychologist in baseball in 1973, I think, and have practiced the program and over those years with almost every sport that you can imagine, from billiards to Olympic sports to our major network type sports. And it's interesting that many of the same concepts apply across sports. For example, people try too hard to do well, and when that doesn't work, they try to not fail. And when that doesn't work, the hole is deep, and that's when they call. And we start trying to not clear the mind, but teach people how to categorize things in their mind so that they can better perform. My program is obviously a supplement to performance. The same way that it affects people in the corporate environment when I work with them. Talent's prerequisite. I can make people feel good and feel good about who they are and what they're doing, but if they can't perform, they can't perform. So talent's prerequisite to the program. But I think the important thing to note here in the program is that once you reach a certain level of talent, that you need some way to supplement the talent to make your performance better than someone else who has the same level of talent, which is very evident in sports. And I've had some many interesting guys and gals that I've worked with over the years, and we'll talk about some of those things. I'm not here to motivate you if you're, because I don't know what you do. I know one thing for a fact: if you're not motivated to do what you do, then you need to do something else. I've asked the question frequently, how do you motivate athletes? I even get that question in corporate events. How do you motivate people? And my answer is simple, always has been the same. Never in my almost 50 years have I attempted to motivate a person. I had rather talk about creating a motivating environment where motivated people want to be there. And so people spend an awful lot of money trying to motivate people, but that's a short-lasting thing. We need something that's effective over the long run. That's why when I work with people, I work with them not on session by session, but I work with them as a program. And I work with them as long as they do what they do. I have athletes I've been working with for 10, 12 years. I have professional athletes that I've not only worked with them during their careers, but have worked with their sons or daughters since then. And so I suspect when these athletes begin to call me to work with their grandchildren, I'll probably quit because I've been in it too long. But it's exciting every day. I may be the only person I've ever met who's never had a bad day at work. I enjoy every day. Every day is a challenge. And I am a very, very strong supporter that we need to have adversity in our lives in order to appreciate the good times. I've always told people, probably a country saying that I grew up with in Tennessee, that you never learn to fly around trees till you fly into them. In other words, you need to learn to recover from adversity to appreciate the good times. The things we're going through right now in the country and in the world with this coronavirus, it makes the point I try to make even stronger because many schools have been closed, seasons have been canceled, corporate people are out of work. And I tell them that, It's not easy. It's tough. It's not easy for me. I've been shut in for 3 weeks in my place. I think sometimes my cats begin to talk back to me. So it's not an easy thing to go through. But once you go through it and you get out the other side, then you really, really begin to appreciate what you do with your life. And I don't think there's anybody that I've ever met whose lives cannot become better. I was diagnosed with MS a few years ago. I've had 4 cancer procedures. I'm diabetic, and I'm a happy person because there are certain things I can't control, and I don't worry about those things. Many of the athletes I've worked with over the years, the very first thing we try to do is get to the point where they understand that we spend 60% of our energy worrying about things we can't control. So if I can get somebody back to spending that energy on things they control in whatever they do in life, then they'll become much better. And it's worked over and over and over again. I could give you specific examples where the results have been incredible. Not because of what I do is magic, it's because I think my program's always been based on common sense. I think my PhD gave me the right to learn to be a sports psychologist. And I think life's experiences are critical to learning to get along in the world and to help us get through not only our jobs, but the environment around our jobs. I was telling one of my athletes the other day that when they begin to play again, I don't think the adjustment's going to be in playing. I think the adjustment's going to be in the environment around the game. I think the same thing is true with corporate people who are working at home. When they go back to work, the adjustment's not going to be so much the work. The adjustment's going to be changing your environment again and dealing with that work environment where you have constraints and time controls and all those things that you don't have at home. So it's people are going through ups and downs emotionally. I know that. It's a very frustrating time. But we need to look, again, at the things we control in our lives. And I control who I am. I control my attitude. I control my emotions. And as long as I do those things, then I'm going to be fine. And I suspect if you do those things, you'll be fine also. Doesn't mean things don't get on your nerves, and doesn't mean that you don't get mad, because to me, if you don't get mad, you don't care. But it's not a question of getting frustrated that concerns me about people right now. It's more a question of how long they stay frustrated, how long they stay mad. I think in any environment I've ever worked in, whether it's a sales environment, corporate environment, whether it's a sport environment, I think there are 2 or 3 things that separate the average people from the better people. And very, very seldom is that talent. Everybody has talent or they wouldn't be there. The thing that separates the two is that the higher group, performing group, recovers much quicker from adversity than the other group. And when I say much quicker, I'm talking about recovering in a matter of 5 seconds versus 5 hours or 15 minutes or 30 minutes. For example, if you're in the corporate environment and you get chewed up and spit out in the morning at 9 o'clock by a potential client, how long is it during the day before you're back to being you? Is it noon? Is it 1 o'clock? Is it 2 o'clock? And how many people have been negatively impacted during those 4 hours who had nothing to do with you getting turned down at 9 o'clock in the morning? So if you can get over it by 9:05, then that's good. I had an offensive lineman with the Atlanta Falcons I was working with, and I asked him, I said, what do you think about when you get beat on the line? Because everybody does. And he said, I can't wait to get back to the line to not get beat again. And I said, that's not going to work. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to lick your wounds. And I'm going to give you the rest of that time between plays to decide what you're going to do to be successful when you go to the line again. You never go into any performance, you never go into a performance trying to not fail. You never go into a performance being defensive. You go into a performance expecting success. And we're going to talk a lot about expectations because they affect everything we do. And we're going to talk about what's your purpose in what you do. We'll talk about sports some. We'll talk about life some. But what's your purpose? What are you? Why are you here? I think I have a very clear perspective on why we're here, having been through the things I've been through, the adversity over the years. And so with that in mind, we'll spend time talking about expectations. We'll spend a lot of time talking about your assets and your liabilities. In other words, everybody tends to set goals, but how many people, after they set goals, they go back and they look at their assets? In other words, the things that make them good at what they do, to make sure there's a match. If there's not a match, the goals need to change, because the assets are not going to change right now. So they are what they are. They'll get better over time, but they are what they are. So same way with expectations. What do you expect to do in your life? Or do you have the assets to do that? I'm certainly not a proponent of those people who make tons of money telling people they can do anything they want to do in their life. I think that's a terrible, terrible thing to tell, especially young people, because we're wired differently. We're put in different environments, and the environment has an impact on what we're able to do. The environment will shut you down, or the environment will facilitate performance. We'll talk about that also later on. But don't ever tell people they can do whatever they want to do, and have them leave the room feeling like they can conquer the world, and they go back to the office or back home and they look around and say, God, the speaker obviously never been here. So we need to be honest with people. It's okay to be excited and positive, and I am. Every single day of my life that I'm left here on this earth will be a positive day. But a positive day because I understand what I'm capable of doing, and I'm happy doing that. And there are way too many people who don't get a chance to enjoy what they're doing because they're always looking to move somewhere else. Enjoy what you're doing, enjoy every day. And I think basically our purpose on earth really is, if you break it down to a good common sense answer, I think our purpose is to touch somebody's life every day. Give you a real quick story. When I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, I was with the Atlanta Braves, and that was in January. And in February, the Atlanta Constitution did an article about my MS and dealing with athletes and all that stuff, and it was good. It was nice, and got a copy from my mom. But I go to spring training and I come back, and the first week in April, I'm walking up the steps of the stadium at night. It was dark, and I hear a voice say, Dr. Jack, is that you? And I have my cane, and my first thought was, I don't know anybody down here. And I said, yes, it's me. What can I do for you? And a guy came up to me, an older person, had a bag of cans on his back. He was a homeless person. And he said, you're Dr. Jack? And I said, yes, I am. What can I do for you? And he said, nothing for me. He said, it was the night my life changed forever. He said, my buddies and me, we live up under the Interstate Highway 20 bridge, and we've lived up there for a few years. And he said, we read about your MS in the paper in February, and they sent me down here, my buddies, tonight, to find you and tell you that we're praying for you and we hope you feel better real soon. And he turned and walked away, and I never saw him again. And I woke up the next morning because I was devastated with MS, because the two worst things for MS are stress and heat. And I made my living outside working with athletes. I never met an athlete in an office in 50 years. And I deal with stress every day of athletes and non-athletes. And so I was devastated, thought my career was over. But I woke up the next morning and I said, maybe, and it's me, you may not be a spiritual person, that's fine. Maybe God took 35 years to teach me to be good at what I do. And now my mission is to touch people's lives who have MS and chronic illnesses and any other number of things. And ever since that day, I've lived that pledge every single day of my life. If I can touch somebody's life every day, I've had a good day, no matter what other things happen. And all of us have an opportunity to do that, no matter what our environment, whether we're students or corporate people, office people, whether we're athletes. All of us have an opportunity to touch somebody's life every day. And we're going to talk about that a lot as we go along. And it's I'm not going to try to convince you of anything. I'm not going to try to change your mind about anything. All I want you to do when you watch these podcasts is to think. Just think. You see, I have a new book out, and it's called Common Sense Leadership. Interesting to me, the reason I did that book is that I feel like in every phase of our lives, and I watch the news and I watch everything on TV, it seems like we've gotten away from good old common sense. One of the problems I have, of course, is with social media. I think kids don't talk anymore. I think we're raising a generation of socially awkward kids, and I experience it every day when I work with young athletes. I think we're getting so dependent on technology and social media that we don't communicate with our office workers as much as we did. I think one of the things that when people go back to work, one of the major challenges is going to be able to get back the chemistry in the office. Chemistry is one of those things you never talk about till you don't have it. But it has a tremendous influence on productivity. And so it's to me, common sense is a great asset if you have it. I don't think I've ever had, when I ask people, whether corporate people or athletes, when I ask them to list their assets and liabilities for me, what makes you good? Those are the assets. What makes you feel good about you? Liabilities. What are the things that drive you nuts? What are the things that you'd like to become better at? Or what are the things you'd like to learn to be able to delete from your life or learn to live with for your life? There's no magic formula. But we look at both of those. And the reason I look at those is interesting because I think that when things start to go in a negative way for you, many times we spend our energy worrying about avoiding liabilities, and we forget what some of our assets are. I have athletes who actually laminate their assets and put them on a business card and carry it in their pockets during performance. I've had professional tennis players do that, professional baseball players do that. They keep a little card in their back pocket that says a list of assets. And it's kind of a refresher when you're not doing well to pull it out and take 5 seconds and look at it. But it's very interesting to me that if we get back to common sense, we find that we can do things that we never imagined we could do. Give you a real quick example. With the MS, I can't read and write anymore. I can't drive anymore. I'm sitting on the town square where I live one day, and I'm looking at the courthouse across the square, and I'm thinking, I've got this book in my head, but I can't write. So all of a sudden, I'm looking at the courthouse, I thought, court reporter. So I hired a court reporter who understands what I do. We're good friends. And hired him to write the book. And they say it turned out well. But we're getting ready to do a second book, Common Sense Coaching. And it's interesting how you can get things done that you've always taken for granted, but all of a sudden you can't do them anymore. If you just sit back and use common sense and get a little creative with yourself and understand what's possible for you. And it was as exciting for me when that book came out as it was for any of the other books I've done that I'd written by myself, because I had figured out how to do something that I never imagined I would need to do. So I want you to stay with me during this series of programs, and we're going to talk about a lot of different things, things I find fascinating, things that I've dealt with before with different people, that I've always thought more people could benefit from. And I just wanted an opportunity to communicate with more people. Even though my program was named top program in the world in 2009 in sports psychology, but I don't know who rated that, but probably my family members. But I really want people to benefit. I want to be able to touch people's lives through this podcast medium that I wouldn't have been able to do before. For example, when I tell you I'm not a social media guy and I'm not a big technology guy, I'm big on parts of it. I'm big on FaceTime. I have athletes in Tahiti and Taiwan and Canada that I've never met, and I've worked with them for over a year, a couple of them 2 years, because we're able to do FaceTime. So I think this downtime we have right now in the world is a time in which social media probably is a benefit, as long as we don't overdo it. But if you'll stay with me and you'll be more than welcome to send me inquiries or send me questions, then I will deal with those. But I have a list of things that I want to get to. I want to deal with expectations and how we form those and how we accomplish them. I want to get to goal setting because I think it's really misunderstood a lot, and how those relate back again to assets and liabilities. I want to spend some time talking about something I think is critical in the world today. Everybody has stress. And I think there's a terrible misconception that you can eliminate stress, and you can't do that. Stress is a part of our lives, like anxiety is a part of our lives. Anxiety is a personality trait. Everybody's a 1 to 10 on anxiety. We have state anxiety and trait anxiety, which is situational. I want to talk with people about thriving on stress, because stress can make you better than you've ever been in your life if you give it a chance and you control it. I want to talk about playing on the emotional edge, which to me is another separator between the good ones and the average ones. The good ones play on the emotional edge, and the reason a lot of people don't is because if they're on the edge, they have a perception they're going to go over the edge, and nobody likes to be over the edge and out of control. But if you can learn to get back over the edge in a matter of 5 seconds or less, would you not be better? And would you not be more willing to go to the edge to supplement your talent? We'll talk about different types of complex versus simple jobs. We'll talk about where the anxiety needs to be or the emotional level needs to be. We'll talk about, I think, something that's very important and neglected now for many, many years is personal professional balance in our lives. I think we've gotten so materialistic that we have de-emphasized the importance of good old-fashioned communication. I mean, talking with each other, looking at each other, and that's especially true with families. And so I want us to talk about personal and professional balance, and then we're going to talk about different areas that people may be concerned about that's not listed under any of those topics. We'll talk about attitude. I think you don't get up in the morning sometimes and have a great attitude about your expectations for the day. I'm not saying you got to be a rah-rah person every day. I'm just saying that you've got to be able to expect good things to happen so that your attitude can be positive as a result of that. I think one of the things I talk about with goals, if you can't reward yourself after you achieve a goal every day, then what good is it? Too many people achieve a goal and right away start thinking about the next day's goals. Why not reward yourself in some way, which leads you into the next day with positive expectations? There are a lot of very practical, common sense things that I think we need refreshers on, and I'm here to give you those, and we'll do it on a regular basis, and I look forward to it. And I am very, very excited about moving into the 21st century. Thank you, and I will see you again soon.